Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. This time we're taking a look at some of the fancy new Doctor Who cards that have been spoiled so far. These two caught my eye. It's the 12th Doctor and Clara Oswald. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So this is the 12th Doctor and Clara Oswald. Clara Oswald has Doctor's companion, so she can be the second commander if the other one is a Time Lord Doctor, which we are right here. So looking at the 12th Doctor, we've got 5 mana in blue-red for a 4/4 Time Lord Doctor. The first spell you cast from anywhere other than your hand each turn has Demonstrate. Demonstrate says when you cast that spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Copies of permanents become tokens. He also says whenever you copy a spell, put a 1/1 counter on himself, which means that when you do the copying from the Demonstrate, he'll get a bit bigger. The exciting part here is Clara Oswald. She is 6 mana colorless for a 2/6. She is the Impossible Girl, which means that if she is your commander, you can choose a color before the game begins. She is the chosen color. This implies a lot for deck building options, so for this video, we're going to just kind of go over some potential options that you might want to play with these two cards, as opposed to like a dedicated deck list. There will be a deck list at the end of the video and in the description of this video, just in case you want to look at my personal take on the deck. Though there's many different ways to take this deck, specifically because Clara can fill either white, green, or black. The other ability on her says if a triggered ability of a doctor you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Now, I know for a fact this triggers on the copying a spell thing. I am unclear currently if it triggers on the demonstrate thing. For this video, I'm just going to assume that it does. This is also very nice because this curves into itself. 12th Doctor's on 5, Clara's on 6. We like that a lot. Now, going into some options here. How are we going to be casting spells from places that are not our hand? Well, the first place to do it is suspend. This is the Doctor Who set. Everything in this set is going to work with suspend in some way, and this pair is no different. So these are all of our blue-red cards, and on the next slide, we'll go into all of our other color cards. We've got really interesting cards like Arcblade, Rousing Refrain, and Inspiring Refrain that put themselves back into exile with 3 time counters on them, so they can keep looping over and over and over again, keep getting additional value off of them. Keep in mind, opponents are going to be getting these abilities to copy themselves as well, which means that you have to either make deals with opponents or understand that they might be sending them their way if you give it to them. You don't have to demonstrate the cards. It's a may. Sometimes you're going to want to, right? Inspiring Refrain, that's a little risky to demonstrate because opponents are going to be drawing 2. The Rousing Refrain is almost entirely risk-free to use the duplicate because you can just give an opponent who's not playing red all the red mana. Even if they are playing red, it's only on your turn, so it doesn't matter. Pocrocite is very interesting to give to your opponents because they will have token copies of them as well, which means that they won't die and get the suspend to loop back up. They'll just get some 1/1 counters. Lotus Bloom and Mox Tantalite are also very cool, interesting options here. You will be giving an opponent one of them, but you'll be getting 3 or 2 yourself, depending on if you have Clara on board. So these are very useful. We've also got exciting cards like Joyride to give any card in our hand suspend. Next up, we've got our white, black, and green versions. So from white, we get Banalish Commander, Restore Balance, and Chronomatic Escape. Chronomatic Escape is another one of our remove with 3 time counter looping cards. This is not great in multiples for yourself, but it's very funny if you give it to 2 of your opponents, locking one person out who probably has a big board from attacking anybody, which I think is very funny. The white suspend cards aren't amazing outside of Gandalf, which gives the first instant or sorcery that you cast from your hand during an opponent's turn suspend, so that you can try to set those up on your turn for comboing off with your other cards that don't always have suspend. For green, we get Searching for Basic Lands. Keep in mind your opponents are going to be doing this as well, but assumingly we're going to be getting 3, so we're going to take advantage of this more than our opponents. Same with Profane Tutor. You'll get to tutor 3 times, and 2 opponents will each get to tutor once. Assumingly, when you're tutoring 3 cards, you should be able to win the game that turn if you're playing at that kind of power level, or just put yourself so far ahead that you've almost functionally won the game. We've also got Madness. When cards with Madness are discarded, they get discarded into exile, and then you can pay their Madness cost to cast them from exile. So we get some cool Madness triggers. We get counter target spell, unless this controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. Even if this is 1, if you've done it 3 times and you're convincing 2 opponents to counter somebody's like big card, then this is very funny. Broken Concentration, just counter target spell. You can counter a whole stack if you want to. Avacyn's Judgment does a big board wipe, which is cool. That you can duplicate the X, so you don't have to pay 1,000,000 into it. You just pay like 3 into it, and then you copy it 3 times. Angie's Ravager, whenever it attacks, you discard your entire hand, then draw 3 cards. This helps us keep our Madness loops going. Welcome to the Fold, steals a bunch of creatures, which is really cool. And Stormcloak Occultist, when it deals damage to a player, you exile the top card of your library, which can then set up for Also in like future turns, you can set up to play a bunch of stuff off the top of your library. This card is also very good in multiples, so that you can exile the top 3 cards of your library and then cast one of those off of your doctor trigger, get a bunch of triggers, then play the rest. Even though they won't get multiplied, they'll still be useful probably. Madness is a really cool way to take this deck. I like this a lot. As far as Madness for our off color, it's basically only in black. You get a Silent Visitor to draw cards when your opponents have no cards in hand, which is nice. You get a bunch of removal options, like 1 mana Madness removal options. You get a kind of Phyrexian Obliterator effect with the Archfiend of Spite. You get a big board wipe with Biting Rain. Necrogoyf gets big power and makes everybody discard. It's helping fuel our discard. Same with Angie here. If you want to take it Clara black, I think you really need to be taking advantage of Madness. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with Madness. Next up, we've got Adventure. Casting the instant or sorcery version of the Adventure will not trigger your doctor, but casting the creature version will. So we want to look at adventures that have useful creature sides. And Wilds of Eldraine made the creature sides a lot stronger than the spell sides, so most of these cards are going to be coming from Wilds of Eldraine, though Bonecrusher Giant does come from the original Eldraine. If you have 3 Scalding Vipers on the board, whenever an opponent casts something that's small, they're going to take a bunch of damage. Aquatic Alchemist just gets big when you cast instants and sorceries. Frolicking Familiar also gets big whenever you cast instants and sorceries, which is cool. The Virtues are the very funny ones here, because they are not legendary, so you will enter with 3 Virtues. Virtue of Courage says, whenever you deal non-combat damage to opponent, exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn, which then continues to fuel your loop. Virtue of Knowledge says, whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, it's basically Panharmonicon. When a permanent entering the battlefield causes a trigger, you do it twice. Now, if you want to build more around Virtue of Knowledge, you can put some Shapeshifters in the deck that have enter the battlefield triggers that Clara will then also double up because they are doctors. Combined with Virtue of Knowledge and Panharmonicon, you can double up on a lot of Shapeshifter triggers, which is very, very cool. Going into our other colors, we've got a lot of black cards here as well as one of them, my favorite in Heartflame Duelist. All of your instants and sorcery spells have a lifelink, which when you are super duplicating all of your instances and sorceries that do damage, this goes crazy. For black, we get Cruel Somniphage, Ghost Lantern, Spellscorn Covenant, and Virtue of Persistence to reanimate our opponent's graveyards onto our board. When Spellscorn enters, each opponent discards a card. If we're in black, we're probably playing Madness, so when we give this to our opponents, we then discard cards that are Madness cards that we can then trigger, whereas when we're playing it, our opponents are all discarding 3 cards, and then the 2 that our opponents are getting, so all of our opponents are discarding 5 cards, where we're only discarding 2. This is crazy, especially if you're playing the Madness deck. Whenever one of your creatures dies, put a 1/1 counter on each equipped creature. You get 3 copies of Ghost Lantern, put them all, because they only equip 1, onto your doctor. Then whenever anything dies, he'll get 3 1/1 counters on him, on top of the counters you're getting from copying stuff, which is very nice. And then Cruel Somniphage is just a big dude. His power toughness equal number of creatures in all graveyards. You're in black, you can set that up. You're playing Madness, you're probably discarding cards. That's very cool. For green, we get Questing Druid, Baluna, Grand Squall to really go into our adventure side, Tlenkali Hunter, and Lovestruck Beast. Lovestruck Beast is very funny because you will do the sorcery part and then do Lovestruck Beast to make 3 Lovestruck Beasts, but the opponent's Lovestruck Beasts can't attack because they assumedly don't have the 1/1 that you have made with Heart's Desire, which is very funny. Tlenkali Hunter says, once during each turn, you may pay 0 mana rather than the mana cost for a creature spell you cast from exile. In red, there's lots of ways to exile your own creatures. This also works with adventures as well, obviously. And then Baluna Grand Squall just helps with your adventure stuff. She is legendary, so you don't get like all the duplicate up, but if you're in green, you're in it for the adventure stuff, and she's just nice to have. The other way we got is Flashback. Blue and red are both very, very good at having Flashback on some important cards, as well as giving Flashback to important cards. We've got cards like Desperate Ravings to draw and then discard at random, which is very funny, which can screw with your opponents when you're making them do it. Ignite the Future is exile top 3 cards of your library. You can play them. If this card was cast from the graveyard, you can cast them all without paying their mana cost, and when you're copying it, the copy still recognizes that it was cast from the graveyard. So you're going to exile the top 9 cards of your deck and play all of them, which is crazy. Mystic Retrieval to get stuff back. Deep Analysis to draw a bunch of cards. Lier to give all of your cards flashback. And Snapcast Animation to give the super powerful ones flashback. Flashback is a really, really important way for these cards to be getting their triggers. And going into our other colors, we basically only have black or white as options here. There isn't many very powerful green flashback stuff, if really at all. Rotten Reunion to try and control out the graveyard, especially if one player is playing a reanimation deck. This is a very political option to try and convince your opponents to really screw over one person's graveyard. Increasing Ambition lets you tutor 2 cards. If you cast it from graveyard, you're going to then tutor 6, and so you're just going to win the game off that. Dralnu gives instants and sorceries in your graveyard flashback, and basically another Lier, which is really, really nice. You'll also get Lidless Gaze to exile cards off of the opponent's libraries, and then you can play those, and then you can flashback this to multiply it again, and then cash all your opponent's cards again, over and over and over again. This is very, very nice in this deck specifically. For white, we get stuff like Increasing Devotion to get a million humans on board, especially especially if we're casting it back. We'll get 30. We get really, really nice card, Battle Screech. This curves into our main game plan very, very nicely. So Battle Screech is 4 mana. You create 2 1/1 white birds. Then you'll play the Doctor on 5. Then you'll play Clara on 6. Clara is white because we've chosen her to be white. Then we can use the Flashback to tap 3 untapped white creatures you control, which is Clara and these 2 birds, to cast this from our graveyard. The Doctor will demonstrate it, Clara will copy the demonstrate, the Doctor will get a bunch of 1/1 counters, you'll get a bunch of birds, 2 opponents will get some birds, but you have like 8 birds at that point, so it doesn't really matter which ones get those. Faithful Mending is useful, kind of gives us our draw 2 and discard 2. There's still some useful cards in Madness that we might want to be doing, even if we're in white instead of in black, so this is still nice for the Madness mode of the deck. And you get Angel Fire Ignition, which puts 2 1/1 counters on target creature. It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until end of turn. You can give that to one of your guys and kill your opponent with it, because you're going to put 6 counters on this card is going to put 6 counters on the Doctor, and then the Doctor's going to put 4 counters on himself. That makes him 14 with Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, Haste, and he kills somebody. You just give 2 copies to 2 opponents, not the one you're trying to kill, and then you kill the one you're trying to kill. And then your opponent's guys they only get the 2 1/1 counters. The Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste is only until the end of your turn. So you don't care about that. You just let your opponent buff 2 of their guys while you killed somebody. We also have Foretell. Foretell shows up a lot in blue and also some useful ones in red. We get stuff like Quakebringer, where when you cast this at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. This will trigger 3 different times. Also, the Quakebringers that your opponents have are mandatory triggers as well. So all of your opponents are going to be taking 10 damage every cycle, where you're only going to be taking 4, which is very nice. Raven Form to just really destroy one player's board. Keep in mind with this one that whoever you copy this to, if you are too far ahead, might target your own stuff. This one's a little risky. Demon Bolt works really, really well because Clara is a 2/6 and the Doctor is a 4/4. But as soon as you've copied one, he's gonna get +1/+1 counters. So the Demon Bolt can't actually kill either of your guys if you're only copying it once. If you do copy it twice, you have to be aware that they can target 2 into one of your guys. But you're gonna be blowing up somebody's board, so it's totally fine. Delayed Blast Fireball also doesn't kill your cards if you have only copied it once, because Clara has 6 health, and hopefully the Doctor has gained more than 5 counters, although this is a lot on its Foretell mana, but it does completely destroy all of your opponent's cards. If you copy it, if you do just demonstrate it once, it'll be 15 damage to all of your opponent's cards, and then only 5 to yours. Also hits all your opponents as well. We also get Alrund's Epiphany to take 7 turns in a row. Take an extra turn after this one. This one will, the way that they resolve, alternate between you and an opponent, so you won't take all of your turns in a row, but it is very funny. And then we get Sage of the Beyond. Spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 2 less to cast. You should probably be running this even if you're not going heavy into the Foretell theme, because this is what our guy wants to do, and we can play him out for 5 mana on turn 5. We've also got Edgin, one of our new D&D cards. Each non-land card in your hand without Foretell has Foretell. And then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, go target creature. The cast here does not work with the copying because you do not cast the copies from the Doctor, but giving all of the cards in your hand Foretell without having to go into black is very, very nice. Although if we do go into black, we get Dream Devourer to double up on this effect, so we are getting that more consistently. In Foretell, you're basically going to want to be in black or white. There is a green option, which is nice. Whenever your stuff becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. You'll have this 3 times. Your opponents really don't want to target you with the copies that you're giving them, because otherwise you're just going to draw a bunch of cards. So this is cool little incentive, but I think that Clara is going to be best either white or black. In white, we get Iron Verdict to deal a bunch of damage to tapped creatures. We get Startime Unleashed, which when foretold, we make a bunch of 4/4 angels. Stoic Farmer finds basic planes, so you can give the copies to opponents who are not on white and will not have basic planes, which is very, very nice. For black, we get Poison the Cup to destroy creatures and then scry a bunch. Skull Raid makes opponents discard cards, and if they can't keep discarding cards, you draw more cards, which is very nice. And then Dream Devourer to make all the cards in your hand foretellable. We are also casting and copying cards, so we get Magecraft. We're already in blue and red. That's where Magecraft is mostly coming out of from Strixhaven, so we're going to take advantage of it. Archmage Emeritus to draw 1 million cards. Stormkill and Artist to make 1 million mana. These are obvious. I really like Octavia Living Thesis. You're probably going to have a bunch of instant sorceries in your graveyard, so maybe you'll be able to play her for cheap, but also you can set your Doctor's power and toughness equal to 8/8, which is very nice, because then that just makes him even bigger when he's trying to go for the kill. The Doctor is our main win condition here to actually just like one-shot an opponent because he gets so big. You also get Deka to go wide whenever you're casting and copying stuff. You make 0/0 green blue fractals where X1/1 counters on it, where X is a mana cost, and then you can make them unblockable a little bit. You're going to be making a bunch of these things going wide, while Octavia allows you to go tall. Very, very nice. Vayron, Voice of Duality, is also incredible in this deck. If casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes a triggered ability to trigger, it triggers an additional time. So this will buff the +1/+1 counters that Doctor gives himself. Also, she will also be getting bigger. If you want to go for some of the really, really big mana cards that you're going to copy a million times, Zephi will one-shot the table. If you are casting something with 10 mana value or greater, it deals 10 damage to an opponent chosen at random, but mana value that costs 10 or greater tend to be very impactful spells, especially when you're copying it 2, 3, 4 times. This is just going to win you the game. And even on the medium side here, you're still making a bunch of 4/4s to also go wide. Very, very nice combo if you want to commit to some of the higher mana plays. In our other colors for Magecraft, we get stuff like Jadzi, which is whenever you cast or copy a card, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land, you can cast it by paying 1 rather than its mana cost. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Obviously, this would be largely triggering when we have already copied a bunch of stuff, but if you just cast an instant or sorcery from hand, then you reveal the top card. If it is a non-land that you want to cast, you can pay 1 colorless and then duplicate it a bunch of times. This is very, very cool. Karok Wrangler puts 1/1 counters on any creature you control, which can be itself, the Doctor, or Clara, to make her kind of a little safer, a little harder to kill. So this is very nice. In green, in white, we basically only get Leon and Light Scribe. You just, all of your creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn, which, if you're really popping off, can be incredibly impactful. But probably the best color for Magecraft is going to be black, with Professor Onyx's Drain 2 Life and Sedgemoor Witches make a dude Magecraft triggers here. Though green is very tempting for these two. I do like that a lot. We also get Disturb. Disturb cards are cast from your graveyard and then make permanents, mostly auras, but sometimes creatures. When this enters, you shuffle up to 3 cards from your graveyard back into your library to be able to recycle them for later. Gutter Shortcut says when the creature is attacking alone, it can't be blocked. So obviously, we're going to be putting this on our Doctor and then just smashing in for a million, unblockable. Ghastly Mimicry says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a token that's a copy of the enchanted creature onto your board. You're going to have 3 or 2 copies of this pretty consistently, so you're going to just be able to clone your opponent's entire board turn after turn after turn. And then Cat-like Curiosity is Curiosity. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You can put all 3 copies of these on the Doctor, and then if you put Gutter Shortcut or any of our other ways to make him unblockable or just hit for a bunch of damage, you'll draw a million cards when you hit. For our other colors, in black, we basically just get Covetous Geist, which is just like a Death Touch guy, flying Death Touch guy. Having a bunch of those is nice. But for white, we get everything else here. We get all your creatures have Ward 1, but you get that 3 times, so you have Ward 3. Enchanted Creature has Double Strike. You can put that on a bunch of your different creatures. Enchanted Creatures has, whenever this attacks, tap target creature defending player controls, put 3 copies of this on your commander, swing, tap down other blockers, hit them for a million. Catilda's Rising Dawn here is legendary, so you can't really duplicate it out as much, but if you're playing really heavy into the enchantments, like all these Disturb cards are, then this is very useful, making your commander very, very big. You get Dorothea's Retribution. This is when you can slam a million copies onto your commander. Then whenever either one of them swings, whichever one you have it on, you'll make 3 4/4 spirit tokens that are flying, tapped, and attacking along with them. They die at the end of combat, but that's okay. And then you get Dennick. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into the graveyard from anywhere, investigate. Nice little card draw engine. He is also legendary, so he's not going to duplicate up, but he is very nice to get that card draw going whenever you're killing your opponent's cards, or whenever yours are dying. Moving on to the next one, we've got Retrace. These are basically our only good cards in Retrace for blue and red, and then these are kind of the other options, mostly here in green, a little bit in black. Throes of Chaos has Cascade, so when you play it, you will then cascade down to a 3, 2, or 1. Mostly some of our other Suspend cards have the 0 mana cost, so then you will cast those and duplicate those a million times. And then later on in the game, you can cast this from your graveyard by discarding a land, paying the 4 mana, and copying Throes of Chaos a bunch of times, and cascading a bunch of yourself just to really get that value going. You've also got Una's Grace to draw a bunch of cards, and Reality Scramble to polymorph your own guys into other big dudes, which is very nice. Since most of the value cards are going to be sorceries and instants of sorceries, this flips us into a card type, flips us into a card that shares a card type with the permanent that we flipped out, which is probably going to be a creature or maybe even an artifact in this deck if we're flipping out like tokens or something like that. For black, we've also got target player discards a card to really, if you want to work together with your friends, really rip one player's hand away from them. We've also got red and 6, which says all your instants of sorceries in your graveyard have Retrace on his ult. It's a little hard to get to this guy's ult, admittedly, but if you get there, you do just instantly win the game. And then Spitting Image to create a token that's a copy of target creature. You will cast this 3 times. Your opponents will only cast it once. So you can just clone an entire board. Again, very easy to do that. And with Retrace, if you keep drawing lands, you just keep doing this over and over and over and over and over, which is very nice. Also, why red and 6 is in here, so that if you have any shock lands or any lands that sacrifice themselves or any fetch lands, he can keep looping the lands back into your hand to recast, keep to keep recasting Spitting Image, Reality Scramble, Una's Grace, any of your fun retrace cards. Next up, we've got Rebound. Some of these cards are incredibly powerful in this deck, especially Recurring Insight. Because of the way that the copies resolve, you resolve yours, then an opponent's resolves theirs, then you do yours, which means that Recurring Insight, if they target you with their copy, you're going to draw a million cards on that last one. Very nice on that. Faithless Salvaging, going along with our kind of madness game plan of discarding and then drawing. This also just is nice to filter through your deck. You can do this a lot of times. Tygam Strike is another one of our really big cards to let our commander get through. If you're casting this 3 times on your commander, he gets +6/0 and can't be blocked this turn, plus the +4 that he gives himself. That's 14 just on his own. He's going in for game. Sight Beyond Sight lets you do a lot of filtering in your deck. And then if we go for white, we get Emerge Unscathed. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Just give this to your commander and whatever other things you want to attack with. Swing through everybody's blockers because you'll have protection. Kill your opponents. We also get Nomad's Assembly. Put a 1/1 token onto the battlefield for each creature you already control. Then the second one will resolve to double your board again after it's been doubled. And then the third one will resolve to double your board again after it's been doubled. We also get Tygam, Ojai's Master. All of your instant sorceries and dragon spells can't be countered by spells or ability. Dragon spells not as useful. Instant sorcery is very useful. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery from your hand, if Tygam already attacked this turn, that spell gains Rebound. So this is another way to give all of our other cards Rebound. And then if you want to go into black, we get Fevered Suspicion, one of my favorite cards. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they get a non-land. You can cast them without paying their mana cost. So the first time you do this, you'll eat all of your opponent's cards. Then you'll do this 3 more times. Two of your opponents will each do it once, but you're getting 12 cards and they're each getting 4. Yours are probably going to win. Next up, we've got Escape, another way to cast cards out of your graveyard. We get some very funny cards like Sweet Oblivion, where you target yourself with the first one and then 2 opponents with the second and third, so that you mill yourself the 4 to then escape it again and just keep milling your opponents out over and over and over again, on top of the copies that your opponents are pointing out at other players. If one of your opponents points it at you, you don't have to point it at yourself, you just point it at your opponents, you're good to go. Underworld Breach to give all of our cards Escape, though it is only for 1 turn. Underworld Breach is very, very powerful. You can do some exciting infinite combo stuff with Underworld Breach. If you go into white, you get Elspeth Sun's Nemesis, who can escape herself back from the graveyard over and over again. Not the best copying target because she is legendary. If you go black, you get From the Catacombs and Kroxa. Even though Kroxa is legendary, it's still nice to copy him because he has an ETB trigger that makes your opponents discard, and then if they can't discard a non-land, they lose 3 life. This is just going to triple up, basically. Even though the other copies all die, you can actually let the real card die and have one of the tokens stay on the board so that you can keep escaping it over and over and over again. Same with Uro if you go to green. These are very, very, very nice. That they actually have legendary matters a lot and is actually kind of helpful for this deck. Then in black, you get From the Catacombs. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a corpse counter on it. You take the initiative. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead. So you can take your opponent's cards from their graveyard. You probably are mostly playing instant sorcery, so this is not super useful for your opponents to target you with. And you can keep escaping it over and over and over again, stealing all their stuff and then exiling it out of their graveyard if they're a Reanimator deck. Other power cards that we've got that don't really fit into one of our other categories here, we've got cards like Torrential Gearhulk, which kind of gives something flashback. We've got Aminatu's Augury, which lets you play cards off the top of your deck. You just make sure that the first one you play is the one that you really want to copy. Plargan Nasari, so that at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile all your opponent's cards and then they pick one for you to grab and then you just copy it a million times. Apex of Power lets you exile the top 7 cards of your deck and play one of those. Again, make sure that you are casting the first one that you want to be copying as the one that you want to go for here. If you go into green, you get Atali Primal Conqueror, so that when he enters the battlefield, you steal the top card of your opponent's decks and then cast them and copy off and go crazy. You do have to be in green here because of its flip side, even though we don't really care about the flip side, we mostly care about the front side. In green, you also get Rashmi. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land with converted mana cost less than the first one, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. This is cast from the top of your deck. So you'll play 1 card for a lot of mana, and then Rashmi will flip you to a kind of semi-cascade. You reveal the top card, and then you can either draw it if it's not something you want to cast, or copy it a bunch of times with your commanders. This is very nice. In black, we get Dauntley Voidwalker to steal all of our opponent's cards and then cast the best one, and Bolus of Citadel to cast cards off the top of your deck in incredible Bolus of Citadel ways. In white, you get Elsha the Infinite, so you can look at the top card of your deck and cast non-creatures off the top of them, and they have Flash, which is very exciting because the commander says only the first card you cast each turn gets the Demonstrate, and this is a very, very nice way to get get the demonstrate going on your opponent's turns as well. So you are maximizing the value of your commanders. You're not just doing things only on your turn, you're also being annoying as hell on your opponent's turn. And that is the deck. A little overview, not a specific deck list in this video, though this link that is here on screen right now, as well as in the description, will take you to my tapped out list of the 12th Doctor and a white version of Clara. That's the one that I think is the most fun, though I definitely understand if you want to take it to the black or green versions. Those seem very, very fun as well. This was the first Doctor and Companion combo that caught my eye in a really meaningful way. I really, really like what these cards are doing, and I know that a lot of my friends are as well. We're all very excited to build around these. We're all very excited about the new Doctor Who set, so keep your eyes on the channel here. We'll have many videos coming out about all these exciting new Doctor Who cards coming out to you soon. If you like this video, give us a like and a subscribe. Throw it down in the comments if you want to see more videos like this or other videos that you'd like to see on the channel. We're always looking at those comments and taking your guys' advice into account. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.